It begins with a thought she shouldn't be having at work. Not fully formed. Not confessable. Just a faint awareness that something in the room has shifted. That the air has weight now. And it's pressing gently against her chest. She notices it before she understands it. The way her hands hesitate over something ordinary. The way her breath comes shallow, then steadies itself, as if correcting a mistake no one else has seen. There is a door nearby. Or maybe a threshold. She can't tell the difference yet. She tells herself it's nothing. Fatigue, probably. Long days have a way of distorting perception. Still, her body doesn't agree. It keeps reacting ahead of her thoughts. A warmth along her collarbone, a tightness behind the eyes, a strange urge to look up and then not. Time stretches in the smallest ways. A second lasts too long. Silence becomes loud. The room feels occupied by more than furniture, more than purpose. Someone is watching. Not rudely, not kindly, just attentively. There are rules here. She knows them, has memorized them. Boundaries that keep things clean, predictable, safe. But rules don't usually announce when they're about to be tested. They soften first. They blur at the edges. She focuses on what she can control. The placement of objects. The steadiness of her voice when she finally speaks. The professional rhythm she slips into like a uniform. It almost works. Almost. Because there's a look, brief, assessing, that lingers a beat too long. Because her name isn't said, but she feels addressed anyway. Because she senses with quiet certainty that whatever happens next won't be dramatic. It won't be loud. It will arrive the way truth often does. Slowly. In plain sight. Already changing things. The carpet on the top floor swallowed the sound of her shoes, which was a problem, because Selena needed something, anything, to keep her steady. The tray was heavy in a familiar way, weight distributing through her forearms, the warmth from the covered plates rising into her wrists. She counted the steps without meaning to. She kept her gaze on the brass numbers ahead of her, as if looking up would make her late for something she couldn't name. The hallway smelled faintly of citrus polish and cooled air. Everything here was too clean. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that made her aware of her own breathing, of the small scrape of the tray against the seam of her uniform. She stopped outside the presidential suite and adjusted her grip. Once, twice, until her fingers stopped slipping. Moisture gathered under her palms, a thin film. Exhaustion had its own sheen. She lifted her knuckles to the door. A soft knock. Professional. Measured. For a moment there was nothing. Then the latch clicked, and the door opened with a controlled slowness that felt deliberate. Not a reveal. Not a greeting. An interruption. A woman stood there wrapped in a silk robe that didn't quite close. Her hair was dark and loose, damp at the ends, water clinging to it as if it hadn't decided whether to fall or stay. There were droplets on her collarbone, on the hollow at the base of her throat. Her skin looked warm against the corridor's cool light, as if she'd brought her own temperature into the world. She didn't smile. Her gaze moved over Selena, not like a flirtation, not like a threat. Like inventory. Like assessment. Like appetite that had learned to call itself something else. 3 seconds maybe. Long enough to make Selena's throat tighten. "Come in," the woman said. Her voice was low, roughened by a day of meetings or lack of sleep or both. It carried the faintest edge of impatience that felt less like anger and more like certainty. Selena stepped inside and the suite swallowed her whole. The door shut behind her with a soft, expensive sound. The air changed. It smelled of steam and clean linen, and something darker underneath. Perfume, maybe, or the mineral scent of rain dried on skin. "Put it there." The woman pointed toward a table near the window without looking away. Selena nodded as if her body remembered how to function. She walked to the table and set the tray down carefully, keeping her movements precise. The clink of cutlery was too loud in the quiet. She reached to lift the cloche. Her hands trembled enough that she had to steady the metal with the heel of her palm first. She hated that. She hated that her body had opinions before her mind did. "Thank you," the woman said, still not smiling. Her eyes stayed on Selena's face, not the food. As if the meal had never been the point. Selena swallowed. "Is there anything else you need, ma'am?" The word ma'am felt too small. Too neutral. It bounced off the room and came back to her like a lie. The woman's gaze dipped, briefly, to Selena's name tag, then returned to her eyes. Selena's breath caught the smallest hitch. It felt like being touched. No, the woman said. A pause. That's all. Selena inclined her head, professional, practiced, and stepped backward once before turning away. She kept her shoulders square even as heat crept up the back of her neck, as if her skin was betraying her. At the door, her fingers found the handle. Cool metal. Grounding. Selena. It wasn't a question. It wasn't friendly. It was simply accurate. She turned. The woman stood near the table now, robes still slightly parted, one hand resting on the chair's back, as if she owned the furniture by right. Her eyes were unreadable in the low, sweet lighting, but there was something sharpened in them. An attention that felt like it had teeth. Yes, ma'am. The woman's mouth moved, as if she were about to say something else. Something that didn't belong to room service. Then she didn't. She just watched Selena one beat longer, as if deciding whether restraint was a virtue or a habit. You're shaking, she said finally, flatly. Not unkind. Not kind. Selena's cheeks burned. Long day. Another pause. Go. Selena left. The door closed behind her with the same soft click. The hallway's cold air rushed in like relief that didn't relieve anything. She walked away fast enough to feel like she was running without moving her arms. At the elevator, she pressed the button once. Then again, as if speed could undo a look. The elevator arrived. She stepped inside, and the mirrored walls caught her face, flushed, eyes too bright. She stared at her own reflection as if it belonged to someone else. No. Not that. She exhaled slowly, forcing her shoulders down. It was just a guest. That was what she told herself while the elevator descended, while the quiet of the top floor fell away, while the sound returned. Distant footsteps, a cart rolling, a laugh somewhere down the corridor on a lower level. Just a guest. Still, her palms stayed damp. And when she tried to think about anything else, her mind kept returning to the same small detail. Water on a collarbone, catching the light like a secret. Later, in the staff corridor behind the kitchens, Selena stood at a sink scrubbing her hands too thoroughly, as if skin could be cleaned of feeling. The water was hot. It reddened her knuckles. She scrubbed anyway. Soap, rinse, soap again. The ritual made sense. It had steps. It didn't ask questions. A coworker brushed past her with a stack of plates. You good? Selena forced a smile. Yeah, just tired. Welcome to Grand Meridian. The coworker laughed softly and disappeared. Selena watched her go. The world continued as if nothing had happened. Because nothing had, technically. She dried her hands with a paper towel, then folded it neatly before throwing it away. A pointless insistence on order. She did that with everything. Little folds. Little alignments. As if precision could protect her from what she couldn't control. Sarah Chen's voice floated down the corridor, sharp, efficient, calling someone else's name. Selena's stomach tightened on reflex. Sarah was everywhere. Watching. Measuring. Learning the business, she'd said, as if Selena's diploma were a childish thing, a paper promise that had to be punished out of her. Selena lifted another tray, and tried to let the earlier moment slip away into the rest of the day. But it stayed inside her like a splinter. Small. Hidden. Impossible not to feel. That night, when her shift finally ended, she should have gone home and slept like the dead. Instead, she found herself lingering. She told herself she was just being responsible. She wanted to check tomorrow's assignments, to make sure she hadn't missed anything, to avoid giving Sarah a reason to look at her with that satisfied disappointment. But she knew the truth the way she knew the feel of a properly folded towel. She was waiting. She didn't like it. She didn't stop. At a little after 9, her phone buzzed with a message from dispatch. Presidential suite. Tray retrieval. Her pulse did something sharp and immediate. Like a door swinging open inside her chest. She picked up the service cart, rolled it along the corridor, and kept her gaze steady on the carpet pattern so she didn't look like someone who had been thinking about this moment all day. When she knocked, the pause before the door opened felt longer this time. As if the suite itself were deciding whether to allow her in. The door opened, and the woman, Brianna, though Selena still didn't know her name, stood in the doorway wearing a simple dress that should have been plain, but wasn't. The fabric lay against her body with quiet authority. Pensive in a way that didn't shout. Her hair was dry now, still loose. There was no robe. No water on her skin. But the memory of it, unbidden, vivid, hit Selena anyway. Brianna's eyes flicked to the cart. Then to Selena's face. Come in. The suite was darker, lit mostly by the city outside. Lights like scattered coins. The laptop was open on the desk. Papers, real paper, were spread out, annotated. A half-empty glass sat near her elbow. Selena moved to the table. She kept her hands steady as she loaded the tray onto the cart, stacking plates carefully so nothing clattered. Brianna didn't return to her work. She stayed near the desk, watching. "You're in training," Brianna said. It wasn't a question. Selena's fingers tightened on the edge of a plate. "Rotation. Sarah, my manager, wants me to understand all departments." Brianna's mouth made a small, unreadable shape. Almost amusement. Almost irritation. "What do you want to do here?" Brianna asked. Selena looked up too quickly, then checked herself, eyes dropping for half a second like she'd been caught stealing. "I'm sorry. What do you want?" Brianna's tone was calm. "Not what you're doing. What you want?" It felt invasive. It felt careful, somehow, like a hand near a bruise without pressing. Selena swallowed. "I want to..." She stopped. Restarted. "I want to grow into management. Eventually." Eventually. Brianna repeated the word like she didn't like it. Selena kept stacking plates. "Sarah says I have to pay my price first." Brianna's gaze sharpened. "Your price?" Selena's mouth tightened. She hadn't planned to say it out loud. Honesty rose in her like a reflex she couldn't unlearn. "She says the diploma doesn't mean anything without baseline experience. That I shouldn't expect opportunities until I've done everything." "And you believe her?" Selena paused with a fork in her hand. The metal was cool, solid. "I believe she has power." The silence that followed didn't feel empty. It felt full. Full of calculation. Full of something Selena couldn't see. Brianna's eyes moved away from Selena for the first time, landing instead on the lamp near the bathroom door. It was out. A dark patch in the room's warm glow. Selena noticed it too. Of course she did. She noticed everything. Without thinking, she walked to it and toggled the switch. Nothing. She tried again. Still nothing. She frowned, then checked the cord's connection at the base, her fingertips brushing the fabric shade. Dustless. Perfectly maintained. Still dead. She turned back to Brianna. "The bulb is burned out." Brianna's expression shifted slightly, like interest finding a new angle. "You notice that?" "I notice." Selena stopped, aware of how it sounded. Too eager. Too intense. "It's part of the job." "No." Brianna's voice was gentle and absolute. "It's part of you." Selena's throat tightened again. She didn't answer, because any answer would have felt like stepping closer to something she didn't want to name. She returned to the cart. Finished stacking. Smoothed the napkin once, a small unconscious motion. Her repeated gesture, smoothing, aligning, making neat what felt messy inside. Brianna watched her do it. "You have ideas," Brianna said. "About hospitality." Selena's heartbeat stumbled. "You do," Brianna insisted, as if she'd already read them somewhere. "I can see it." Selena's hands hovered over the cart handle, uncertain what to do with themselves. "Hotels treat people like transactions," she said quietly, surprising herself with the force of her own truth. "They check in, they check out. The interaction is scripted. Smiles on command." "And you want..." Selena inhaled. The word came out like a confession she hadn't planned. "Connection." Brianna's eyes held hers. "Show me." Selena blinked. "I'm sorry. Show me what you mean." Brianna's tone wasn't cruel. It was a challenge given without raising her voice. "If you want connection, make it real, even here." Selena's mind scrambled for protocol. For rules. For reasons to step back. But Brianna was still watching her with that attentiveness that made Selena feel too visible. As if hiding would be an insult. Selena's mouth went dry. "I can't, with guests." Brianna tilted her head. "Because of rules. Because of..." Selena paused. "Because it's not appropriate. Appropriate." Brianna repeated it like she was tasting the word. "Then, is it appropriate that your manager uses humiliation as training?" Selena's face flushed. "She doesn't." Brianna's gaze didn't move. "Doesn't what?" Selena exhaled. The truth slipped out because it had been sitting in her throat for weeks, heavy and unspoken. "She calls me college girl in front of the staff. She assigns me to double shifts and says it builds character. She told me if I'm tired, I'm weak. Brianna was very still. The stillness felt controlled, like the moment before a decision. Selena realized, abruptly, that she was standing in a presidential suite telling a stranger things she'd never said out loud. She felt exposed. Foolish. She reached for the cart handle to leave, needing motion to save her. Brianna spoke before she could. "What's your mother's name?" The question hit like a hand on her wrist. Selena frowned. "Why? Answer." Selena's chest tightened, but something in Brianna's tone, softened, almost human, made resistance feel pointless. "Marisol." Brianna nodded once, as if filing it away. "What did Marisol teach you about work?" Selena's breath caught. Memories rose uninvited. The smell of bleach, the sound of vacuum cleaners, her mother's hands cracked and raw, still braiding Selena's hair at night with careful gentleness. "She cleaned hotels," Selena said. Her voice went thinner. "She taught me to notice what people don't see, to make someone feel cared for, even if they never know your name." Brianna's gaze stayed fixed on Selena's face, but something in it shifted. Something like recognition. Not pity. Not charity. Something else. Something that made Selena's stomach turn with strange, sharp tenderness. For a moment neither of them moved. The city lights outside flickered. Our horn sounded faintly far below. The world continued. Then Brianna looked down at the desk, as if she needed the distance. "You're good at seeing," she said, quieter now. "And you don't complain." Selena gripped the card handle. "Complaining doesn't help." Brianna's mouth tightened. It should. Selena didn't know what to do with that. She didn't know what Brianna wanted from her. She only knew the air felt different when Brianna spoke like this. Less like a guest, more like something dangerous. A person. "I'll send someone to replace the bulb," Selena said, retreating to something safe. Brianna's eyes lifted again. "You could." Selena blinked. "Me? Why not?" Brianna's tone was mild, but her gaze was steady. "If you care about details, if you see them." Selena hesitated. It wasn't her job. It was maintenance. But she could do it. She could do anything. She'd been taught to solve problems quietly, to handle things without making it anyone else's burden. She nodded once. "I can." Brianna watched her, the corner of her mouth lifting in something that wasn't quite a smile. "Good." Selena turned to go, pushing the cart toward the door. Her heart was beating too hard. She hated that it made her body loud inside. At the door she paused. Not because she wanted to. Because she couldn't help it. Brianna spoke again, as if she'd been waiting for the pause. "Selena." Selena turned. Brianna's gaze traveled briefly, just once, from Selena's eyes to her mouth and back. The motion was so quick it could have been nothing. It wasn't nothing. Selena's breath caught. A bodily echo, immediate and involuntary, warmth pooling low in her abdomen, a tightness along her ribs. Her skin felt too thin. Brianna's expression didn't change. "Don't let Sarah make you smaller than you are." The words landed softly. They still struck like impact. Selena's throat tightened. She couldn't manage a reply that wasn't too much. So she nodded, small and controlled, and left. In the hallway she leaned her shoulder against the wall for half a second, eyes closed. The carpet muffled everything. The silence pressed in. She tried to tell herself it was just kindness. Just a guest being observant. But the truth circled in her mind like a recurring question she couldn't set down. Why did it feel like a test? And like being chosen? The next day passed with the ordinary cruelty of work. Sarah assigned Selena to banquet setup, then front desk overflow, then linen inventory, each task delivered with a smile that never warmed her eyes. "You need to earn your place," Sarah said, as if Selena were trying to steal something instead of build a career. Selena swallowed her anger. She moved. She worked. She folded towels with relentless precision until the stacks looked like architecture. And all day, like a stubborn pulse, the thought returned. Don't let her make you smaller. It didn't solve anything. It didn't change Sarah. But it did something inside Selena's chest. A small internal shift. Like a spine straightening. At 6 p.m. dispatch called, presidential suite. Room service. Selena's stomach flipped. She told herself it was coincidence. Rich guests ordered food. Presidential guests ordered more food. There was no reason to think, but when she arrived, the suite door opened almost immediately, as if Brianna had been expecting her. Brianna wore a loose t-shirt this time, the fabric soft and thin, hanging off one shoulder in a way that looked careless and was probably calculated. Her legs were bare. Selena's eyes dropped before she could stop them, then snapped back up, heat rushing to her face. Brianna's gaze flicked to Selena's flushed cheeks and held there a quiet awareness. Not smug. Not gentle. Just present. "Dinner," Selena said, voice steady only because she forced it. "Yes." Brianna stepped back to let her in. "Put it there." Selena entered, and the air hit her again. Linen, city, something faintly bitter like black tea. The suite felt less like a hotel room now and more like a space Brianna had inhabited. Papers rearranged. A jacket draped over a chair. A glass rinsed and drying upside down on a towel. Selena set the tray down. She lifted the cloche, careful. The steam rose, warm and fragrant. Her fingers steadied the plates with the same precise motions. Her repeated gesture returned without thinking, smoothing the napkin, aligning the cutlery, making symmetry where she could. Brianna watched her hands. "You came back," Brianna said. Selena froze for half a beat. "It's my shift, no." Brianna's voice was quiet. "You could have traded. You didn't." Selena's pulse thudded. She didn't answer because the answer would reveal too much, even to herself. Brianna moved closer, just a few steps. Close enough that Selena could smell her. Clean skin, faint perfume, something warm underneath. Close enough that Selena became acutely aware of the space between them, of how easily it could be crossed by accident. Brianna reached past Selena to adjust a glass on the table, her hand brushing near Selena's wrist. Not touching. Almost touching. Selena's body reacted anyway. A spark behind her ribs, a breath she couldn't fully inhale. She steadied herself by focusing on the tray's edge, the cool metal under her fingertips. "There's a lamp burned out," Brianna said, voice low. "Did you send someone?" "Hi." Selena cleared her throat. "I brought a bulb. I can change it now." Brianna's eyes held hers. "Go ahead." Selena crossed to the lamp, retrieved the bulb from her apron pocket. Mundane. Practical. A small act that gave her hand something to do. She unscrewed the old bulb, feeling its cool glass. She replaced it with a new one, fingers careful, deliberate. When she switched it on, warm light filled the corner of the suite. The simple success should felt satisfying. Instead, it felt intimate. Like doing something small in someone else's private space. Like being allowed. Brianna watched the new light settle. "You fix things," she said. Selena's throat tightened. "It's part of my job." Brianna's gaze sharpened, the same friction returning. "You keep using that phrase." Selena swallowed. "Because it's true." "And what about what you want?" Brianna asked quietly. "When it isn't part of the job." Selena stood very still. The bulb's warmth radiated faintly from the lampshade. She felt it on her fingertips, as if heat could travel through memory. She didn't know how to answer without stepping over a line. Brianna didn't move closer. She didn't push. She simply waited, a controlled stillness that made Selena's own silence feel louder. Selena's thoughts looped, circling the same dangerous center. "She's watching me. She wants something. I want something." "No? Not that." "Not exactly." "Do you like it here?" Brianna asked, softer, as if offering Selena a safer door. Selena exhaled slowly. "I like the idea of it." "The idea. I like making people feel seen," Selena said, surprising herself with the honesty. "But sometimes I feel invisible in the process." Brianna's eyes stayed on her, steady and intent. "You're not invisible." The words should have been simple. They weren't. They landed inside Selena like a weight that warmed instead of burdened. Her chest tightened. Her eyes stung, not with tears exactly, but with something close. Recognition, maybe. Or the fear of it. She looked down, needing to break the gaze. "Is there anything else you need?" Brianna's mouth twitched, almost smiling. "Not right now." Selena nodded, forcing her hands back onto the cart handle. The need to leave was immediate. Urgent. Staying felt like standing too close to a flame. She pushed the cart toward the door. Her heartbeat was unsteady, a rhythm she couldn't control. Behind her, Brianna's voice came again. "Selena." Selena stopped. Turned. Brianna stood under the new warm lamplight, her face half-shadowed, eyes sharp in a way that made Selena feel both exposed and held. Brianna didn't say anything for a moment. The pause stretched. It didn't advance the story. It didn't move anything forward. It simply existed. Selena felt her own breath in her throat. Felt the slight dampness of her palms returning. Felt the boundary between them tremble, not breaking, not holding firm, just quivering. Finally, Brianna spoke, low and deliberate. "You're learning the business. So am I." Selena's brow furrowed. "You?" Brianna's gaze didn't flinch. "Yes." Selena didn't understand, but she felt the implication like a shadow passing over her skin. Something about Brianna's certainty, her attention, the way she kept asking questions that didn't belong to room service. Selena's voice came out quieter than she intended. "Good night, ma'am." Brianna's eyes held hers. "Good night, Selena." Selena left, the door closing behind her with that soft, expensive click. In the hallway, she stood still for a beat too long, cart in front of her like a barrier. Her mind returned, again, to the same recurring thought, altered slightly now by the warmth of the lamp, by the shape of Brianna's paws, by the way her own body had answered a near touch. This isn't a guest. This isn't just work. And something in her has already started to move. She pushed the cart forward, the carpet swallowing the sound. But inside her, the silence stayed loud. By the third night, the hallway no longer felt neutral. Selena noticed it before she wanted to. The way her pace slowed as she approached the top floor. The way her fingers adjusted the tray without instruction, the same small correction every time, left hand under the weight, right thumb pressed to the rim until the tremor settled. The carpet still swallowed sound. The air still smelled faintly of citrus and cold. Nothing had changed. Except her. She stopped outside the presidential suite and waited half a second longer than necessary, as if listening for something through the door. She didn't know what. Only that her body recognized the space on the other side now. Anticipated it. She knocked. This time, the door opened almost immediately. Brianna stood there in a loose t-shirt and underwear, one bare thigh visible where the fabric rode up. No robe. No towel. Just comfort worn without apology. Her hair was pulled back loosely, strands escaping at the temples. She looked less like a guest tonight, and more like someone inhabiting the room. "Come in," Brianna said, stepping aside. Selena entered, careful not to let her gaze linger, and felt the familiar shift, the quiet pressure change, the sense of being inside a space that held someone's rhythm. Papers had moved since yesterday. The jacket was gone. A book sat open on the desk now, face down as if interrupted. She set the tray down, lifted the cloche. Steam rose. Brianna leaned against the desk, arms crossed loosely, watching. "You remember where everything goes," Brianna said. Selena's hands paused for a fraction of a second. "It's consistent." "No," Brianna said. "You remember." Selena didn't correct her. She arranged the cutlery, smoothed the napkin. There it was again, that repeated gesture, and felt the air tighten slightly, as if Brianna noticed the motion too. "Long day?" Brianna asked. Selena nodded. "Yes, because of Sarah." It wasn't framed as a question. Selena's jaw tightened. She likes to rotate. Brianna tasted the word, unimpressed. "And how do you feel about that?" Selena hesitated. The correct answer lived on her tongue. The safe one. "I'm learning," she said finally. Brianna's gaze stayed on her, steady. "You're allowed to have opinions." Selena looked up then, surprised despite herself. Their eyes held for a beat too long and something quiet passed between them. Not attraction, not exactly. Recognition maybe. Or permission. Selena looked away first. When she left that night, her steps were slower, her breathing unguarded in a way that unsettled her. She spent the rest of her shift replaying small moments. The way Brianna stood, the way she spoke as if expecting honesty, the way she waited. By the fourth night, the routine had formed its own shape. Brianna ordered room service at the same time. Selena was always the one dispatched. The tray changed, different meals, different scents, but the rhythm remained. Sometimes Brianna wore a robe, silk sliding open at the collar. Once, she answered the door wrapped only in a towel, skin flushed from heat, hair damp again. Selena had looked down immediately, pulse racing, cheeks warm. Brianna had noticed. had said nothing. They talked while Selena worked. Never about anything that felt dangerous on the surface. About hotel operations. About guest expectations. About the difference between service and hospitality. Hospitality, Selena said one night, aligning plates with careful precision, isn't about luxury, it's about anticipation. Brianna sat on the edge of the bed, laptop open beside her, glass of water balanced in one hand. Anticipation of what? Need, Selena said. And fear. Brianna's brow furrowed. Fear. People are vulnerable when they travel, Selena continued, surprising herself with the fluency of it. They're out of place. Tired. They want to feel like someone is holding the edges of their experience so they don't have to. Brianna watched her closely. You think hotels should hold people? Selena's mouth curved slightly. I think people want to be held. The words lingered in the air longer than they should have. Brianna took a slow sip of water. That's expensive, she said lightly. Not always, Selena replied. It costs attention, not money. Brianna's gaze sharpened again, that familiar assessment returning. You sound like someone who's thought about this. Selena's fingers paused mid-motion. I have. Why? Selena hesitated, then shrugged. My mother worked housekeeping. She used to say that when guests left, they never remembered her face. But they remembered how they felt when they slept. Rested. Safe. Brianna's eyes softened, just slightly. Did she like it? No, Selena said honestly. But she was good at it, and you. Selena didn't answer. She focused on stacking plates, on the solid reassurance of weight and order. The world outside the suite continued. Elevators chimed. Voices drifted faintly through walls. Somewhere, a phone rang and rang until someone answered it. Inside, the silence felt chosen. On the fifth night, Brianna didn't order food. The call came late, after 10. Dispatch marked it as urgent, concierge failure. Selena felt the familiar tightening in her chest as she headed upstairs, problem-solving already unfolding in her mind. When she entered the suite, Brianna stood on the balcony, glass of wine in hand, city lights spreading beneath her like a constellation. I need tickets, Brianna said without turning. Impossible ones. Selena set her bag down slowly. For when? Tonight. Selena's mouth twitched despite herself. That's ambitious. Brianna turned then, one eyebrow lifting. Can you do it? Selena didn't answer immediately. She thought of her classmates, of favors traded, of names remembered. She thought of what connection really meant. I can try, she said finally. Try? Brianna repeated. I don't like that word. Selena met her gaze. Neither do I. The next 40 minutes passed in a blur of calls and texts, of quiet concentration and controlled urgency. Selena paced the suite, phone pressed to her ear, voice low and persuasive. She remembered birthdays. She invoked shared favors. She promised things she could deliver later. Brianna watched her, leaning against the balcony rail, wine forgotten. She saw the way Selena's posture shifted when she negotiated, the confidence that emerged when she was allowed to use her strengths. When Selena finally ended the last call, she exhaled slowly. Done. Brianna blinked. That was fast. Selena shrugged, suddenly shy. It's about relationships, not money. Brianna stepped closer, close enough that Selena could smell the wine on her breath, rich and dark. Impressive. Their gazes held. The space between them felt charged, like a held breath. Brianna lifted her glass slightly. Have one. Selena hesitated. I can't, I won't tell, Brianna said, a smile touching her mouth. Selena wavered. The rule was clear. The boundary firm. Still, she accepted the glass. They talked for hours after that. About nothing that felt safe. About everything that mattered. Selena spoke of her mother, of scrubbing floors, and studying late into the night. Brianna spoke, carefully at first, of boardrooms and isolation, of building something so large it eclipsed touch. You get to the top, Brianna said quietly, and people stop seeing you. They see your position. Selena listened, something tender and fierce stirring inside her. That sounds lonely. It is, Brianna said simply. When Selena left at 3 a.m, their hands brushed at the door. Thin against skin, accidental, and electric. Selena felt it all the way up her arm. She didn't look back. The next week stretched like a held note. Brianna extended her stay. Found reasons. Selena felt the tension grow, not dramatic, not explosive. Just present. Sarah noticed. "Why does the guest in the presidential suite request you?" she asked one afternoon, voice sharp. "Is there something inappropriate going on?" Selena's stomach clenched. "No." Sarah's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Be careful." The warning stayed with Selena, coiling inside her chest. That evening, Brianna noticed the shift immediately. "Something's wrong." Selena hesitated. "My manager is suspicious." Brianna's jaw tightened. "Of what? Me?" Selena said quietly. Brianna considered her for a moment, then spoke with deliberate calm. "Have dinner with me." Selena blinked. "Outside the hotel. I want to hear your ideas," Brianna said. "Professionally." The word sat between them like a shield and a promise. Selena nodded. At the restaurant, the facade held. For a while. They spoke of systems, of leadership, of what hospitality could be. Wine loosened edges. Laughter slipped out unexpectedly. Then Brianna said softly, "I can't stop thinking about you." The words landed heavy and irrevocable. Selena's breath caught. "You have power over me." "I know," Brianna said. "And I hate that." Silence stretched. The city hummed around them. In the car, tension finally broke. The kiss came desperate and unplanned, years of solitude and weeks of restraint colliding in a single moment. It was not gentle. It was not soft. It was real. When Selena pulled away, breathless, her hands trembling, she knew something had shifted beyond repair. Later, lying awake in the quiet, she stared at the ceiling and returned to the thought that had been circling her for days, altered now by touch and truth. "This is already changing me." And she didn't know yet whether that terrified her or felt like coming home. Morning arrived without ceremony. Light filtered through the sheer curtains in pale bands, touching the edge of the bed, the desk, the abandoned jacket on the chair. The city outside exhaled into a new day. Engines starting, voices rising. A distant siren dissolving into traffic. Selena woke already aware of another body beside her. Not startled. Not confused. Just aware. The warmth at her back was unmistakable, steady, grounding. Brianna slept facing her, close enough that Selena could feel the slow rise and fall of her breathing through the thin barrier of sheets. An arm lay loosely around Selena's waist, not possessive, not careful. Simply there. Thought came before she could stop it. This is real. Her chest tightened with the weight of it. She lay still, afraid that movement might collapse the moment into something smaller, something ordinary. She let herself stay suspended in that quiet overlap between sleep and waking, where consequences hadn't fully arrived yet. Her mind drifted. Not forward, not backward. Just circling. The memory of the kiss returned, not as an image, but as sensation. Pressure, heat, the abrupt loss of control in Brianna's hands, the way Selena had answered without thinking. It hadn't been gentle. It hadn't been cruel. It had been honest. Selena swallowed, throat dry. She felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with skin. She shifted slightly, careful. Brianna stirred, but didn't wake, her hold tightening just a fraction, reflexive. The contact sent a quiet echo through Selena's body, a warmth low in her stomach, a pull she didn't fully understand yet. She closed her eyes again. Just breathe. The sheet smelled faintly of detergent and something darker beneath it. Brianna's perfume, maybe, or just her. The scent felt intimate in a way Selena wasn't prepared for. She'd been close to people before. This was different. This felt chosen. Time passed without advancing. The clock on the bedside table clicked over to a new minute. Outside, a car door slammed. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. Inside the suite, the world held its breath. Brianna woke slowly. Selena felt it before she saw it, the subtle change in breathing, the shift of weight, the way Brianna's hand moved slightly, fingers flexing as consciousness returned. Selena kept her eyes closed, unsure whether she wanted to be caught awake. Brianna didn't pull away. Instead, she rested her forehead lightly against the back of Selena's shoulder, close enough that Selena could feel the warmth of her breath there. Not a kiss. Not a demand. Just presence. "Morning," Brianna murmured, voice low and rough with sleep. Selena's eyes opened. "Morning." There was a pause. Not awkward. Deliberate. Brianna's hand loosened, giving Selena space without withdrawing completely. "Are you okay?" It wasn't perfunctory. It wasn't loaded. Selena turned slightly to face her, enough to see Brianna's eyes, dark, searching, unexpectedly careful. "I think so," Selena said honestly. Brianna nodded, as if she'd expected that answer and was relieved by it. "Good." They lay there for another stretch of time, neither rushing to speak, neither reaching for more. The closeness felt fragile now, like something that could fracture under too much analysis. Eventually, Brianna shifted onto her back, arm retreating to her side. Selena missed the contact immediately, the absence registering before she could correct herself. Brianna stared at the ceiling. "I should say something." Selena's chest tightened. "You don't have to." Brianna turned her head, studying her. "I want to." Selena waited. "I don't usually do this," Brianna said, the words quiet but firm. "Not with employees. Not with anyone connected to my work." Selena nodded. "I know, and I know that doesn't make it okay." Selena inhaled slowly. "I don't feel taken advantage of." Brianna's jaw tightened. "That doesn't erase the imbalance." "No." Selena agreed. "But it matters how it feels." Brianna considered her for a moment, then looked away again. "It does." Silence settled again, thicker now. More complicated. Selena sat up slowly, gathering the sheet around her without thinking, the motion automatic. She swung her legs over the side of the bed and stood, suddenly needing to move, to anchor herself in something physical. The carpet was cool under her feet. She crossed to the window and pulled the curtain back slightly, letting more light flood the room. The city stretched below, alive and indifferent. It helped. Behind her she heard Brianna sit up, the soft rustle of sheets. Footsteps approached, but stopped short, respectful. Selena turned. Brianna stood a few feet away, wearing one of the hotel's robes now, tied loosely. Her hair was tousled, unguarded in a way Selena hadn't seen before. She looked less like a CEO and more like a woman who hadn't slept enough and had let herself be known. "We don't have to decide anything right now," Brianna said. Selena studied her face, the lines of control softened by mourning. "I don't want to pretend it didn't happen." Brianna met her gaze. "Neither do I." Another pause. Selena nodded once. "I need to get to work." Brianna's mouth curved, just slightly. "Of course you do." Selena almost smiled back. The hotel felt different after that. Not changed in any visible way. The same marble floors, the same low hum of activity, the same unspoken hierarchies. But Selena moved through it with a heightened awareness, as if something inside her had tuned itself to a new frequency. She noticed Brianna everywhere, even when she wasn't there. In the way the presidential suite door caught the light. In the faint scent of perfume lingering in the elevator. In the quiet confidence with which Selena navigated problems now, her voice steadier, her spine straighter. Sarah was watching her again. That much was clear. "You seem distracted," Sarah said that afternoon, arms crossed, eyes sharp. Selena met her gaze evenly. "I'm focused." Sarah's smile thinned. "Make sure it stays that way." Selena nodded, calm in a way that surprised her. The warning didn't coil inside her this time. It slid off. Later, when dispatch called her up again, the request marked routine. Her heart still skipped. But it didn't race. She knocked. The door opened to reveal Brianna in jeans and a crisp blouse, hair pulled back neatly, the familiar armor back in place. For a moment, Selena wondered if she'd imagined the morning's softness. Then Brianna's eyes met hers, and something quiet and unmistakable passed between them. "Come in," Brianna said, voice controlled. They moved around each other easily now, a shared choreography forming. Selena set the tray down. Brianna stepped aside without instruction. Their hands nearly brushed. Again, and this time neither of them flinched. "Did you sleep?" Brianna asked low. "A little," Selena said. Brianna nodded. "Me too." They talked while Selena worked, but the conversation stayed carefully mundane. About a delayed shipment. About a conference call that had gone poorly. About the lamp Selena had fixed, which still glowed warmly in its corner. "You notice things," Brianna said again, not accusing this time. Almost fond. Selena smoothed the napkin. "I can't help it." Brianna watched the motion, then looked away, as if to give herself space. The world intruded gently. A knock at the suite door, housekeeping checking schedules. Brianna answered it professionally, voice crisp, boundaries restored. Selena waited, hands folded, feeling the strange duality of it all. When the door closed again, Brianna exhaled. I'll be gone most of the day. Selena's chest tightened unexpectedly. Okay. But I'll be back, Brianna added, as if correcting herself. Selena nodded, relief quiet but present. That night, Brianna didn't touch her. They sat on opposite ends of the couch, shoes kicked off, a shared bottle of water between them. The TV played silently, images flickering without sound. They talked instead. About Brianna's childhood, about Selena's classes, about what it meant to want something, and be afraid of the wanting. The conversation looped and returned, deepening without advancing. At one point, Brianna laughed softly at something Selena said, head tipping back slightly. The sound settled into Selena's chest like a small anchor. Later, when Selena stood to leave, the space between them felt heavier than before. Brianna rose too, stopping a careful distance away. This is hard, Brianna said. Selena met her gaze. But not wrong. Brianna searched her face, then nodded once. We'll go slow. Selena's mouth curved. You don't like slow. Brianna's lips twitched. I'm learning. They didn't kiss. Selena left with her heart steady and unsettled all at once. In the hallway she paused, hand resting against the cool wall, and let herself feel it. The fear, the hope, the quiet certainty that something inside her had crossed a line it couldn't uncross. She walked away slowly, carrying the same thought she'd been circling since morning, altered now by restraint instead of urgency. This is becoming something. And she didn't yet know how to hold it without breaking it. The spoon kept circling the coffee as if motion could make the moment easier. Selena watched the surface darken and lighten in slow spirals, the cream folding into the bitter like something being absorbed. The cup was warm against her fingers. That warmth should have been comforting. Instead, it felt like a spotlight, small, focused, unavoidable. Across the table, Brianna sat barefoot in a robe that looked like it had never belonged to the hotel. The robe's collar had slipped open slightly at the throat. Not an invitation. Not a performance. Just the aftermath of a morning that hadn't returned either of them to who they were before. The suite was quiet except for the city beyond the glass. A low wash of sound. Tires on wet pavement, the faint rise and fall of distant voices. A siren passing and then vanishing. Life continuing. Insistent. Selena kept stirring. Brianna hadn't touched her since last night. Not in the obvious ways. But Brianna had been close, always close, pouring coffee, handing Selena a napkin without looking at her hands, pausing when Selena's sleeve brushed the edge of Brianna's wrist. Small contacts that didn't count as contact. Proximity that said more than any sentence. Brianna watched Selena's spoon like she was reading it. Your hands are steady, Brianna said quietly. Selena's breath caught. She set the spoon down with care, the clink too loud in the quiet. They're not. Brianna's gaze lifted to Selena's face, direct and unnervingly calm. They are right now. Selena's throat tightened. She looked away, toward the window. The light was gray-blue, early and soft. The city looked half awake. It reminded her of the balcony at dawn, the idea of possibilities, except now the word tasted different. Less romantic. More costly. Brianna's voice came again, low and controlled. I need to tell you something. Selena's stomach dropped. The sentence felt like a door closing. She didn't answer immediately. The silence stretched, a thin line pulled taut. Brianna waited without filling it. That was a kind of mercy. Or a kind of discipline. Selena turned back, forced herself to meet Brianna's eyes. Okay. Brianna's expression didn't soften exactly. But something in it shifted, like someone stepping into a cold room without flinching. My name is Brianna Lawson, she said. The name landed with the heaviness of something already known in the body before it was spoken. Selena didn't recognize it at first. Not consciously. It was just a name. A woman's name. Then Brianna added, evenly, I own this hotel. Selena's mind went blank, as if her thoughts had been wiped clean. For a second she could only hear the blood in her ears, loud and rushing. No, she said, but it didn't sound like denial. Sounded like reflex. Brianna's gaze stayed on her, unwavering. Yes. Selena's fingers tightened around the coffee cup until the heat bordered on pain. The warmth in her hands became sharp. Punishing. You. Selena tried again. Her voice failed. She swallowed, throat dry. You're the Lawson. Brianna nodded once. Lawson International Holdings. Grand Meridian is one of ours. Selena stared at her. The robe. The bare feet. The quiet confidence. The way Brianna had asked questions like she had every right to. Because she did. Oh my God, Selena whispered. Brianna didn't look pleased. She looked resolved. I came here to audit quietly. Surprise review. The merger makes everything more sensitive. I needed to see the hotel the way guests do. The way employees experience it. Selena's chest tightened. And I was part of that. Brianna's mouth moved slightly, like she wanted to protest, to insist on nuance. Then she didn't. She took the sentence as it was, because it was true. Selena set the cup down too hard. Coffee rippled, threatening to spill. She stared at the dark surface like it might offer instructions. Why didn't you tell me? Selena asked, voice thin. Brianna's eyes held hers. Because I didn't expect. She stopped, recalibrated. Because it wasn't supposed to matter. Selena let out a breath that was almost a laugh. But there was no humor in it. And then it did. Brianna's jaw tightened. Yes. The silence that followed was different from the silences they'd shared before. Not chosen. Not tender. This was the kind of quiet that widened distance. Selena stood abruptly. The chair legs scraped softly against the carpet. The motion made her dizzy, like she'd stood up too fast after being underwater. Brianna remained seated, watching her with the same attention as always, only now the attention felt heavier. Weighted with power. With consequence. With things Selena hadn't agreed to carry. You're my boss, Selena said, the words breaking into the room as if they'd been waiting behind her teeth. You're the boss of my boss. Brianna's face didn't change. Technically. That word, Selena snapped softly, then stopped herself. Her hands hovered at her sides, unsure what to do with themselves. Her fingers flexed once, twice. Everything you've done. Asking me questions, calling me up here, keeping me. I didn't keep you. Brianna said, voice low. Selena's eyes flashed. You requested me. You made it so it was always me. You watched me like... Like what? Brianna asked, quiet and steady. Selena swallowed. Her mouth tasted metallic. Like you were deciding if I was worth wanting. Brianna's expression tightened, something sharp passing through it. Pain, maybe. Or guilt. Selena's breath shook. She hated that it did. She hated that she still felt the memory of Brianna's warmth in bed, the way Brianna had looked at her like she was real, like she mattered. How am I supposed to know, Selena said, voice breaking slightly, if any of it was real, or if you were just testing me? Brianna stood then, slow and careful. She didn't approach. She didn't reach. She let distance remain, as if distance was the only consent she could offer right now. I didn't plan to feel anything, Brianna said. Her voice was controlled, but there was something raw underneath it, like a bruise pressed gently. I didn't plan to want you. I don't make decisions like that. Selena laughed once, breathless and bitter. You make decisions like everything. Brianna's gaze held, unflinching. Yes, and this is the first thing in a long time that didn't feel like a decision. Selena stared at her. The sentence should have softened her. It didn't. Not yet. Not with the power imbalance sitting between them like a third person at the table. I need air, Selena said abruptly. Brianna nodded. Oh, of course. Selena moved toward the door. Her hands shook as she reached for the handle. She hated that too, how her body betrayed her even now. Behind her, Brianna's voice was quiet. Selena. Selena paused, back still turned. I'm going to fix this, Brianna said. Not with words, with actions. Selena swallowed. She didn't trust her voice. She opened the door and left. The hallway was colder than she expected. The carpet muffled her steps. She walked too fast, as if speed could put space between her and the last 10 minutes of her life. In the elevator, her reflection looked wrong. Eyes too wide, face too pale. Like she'd been caught stealing something that didn't belong to her. She pressed the button for the lobby with more force than necessary. When the doors opened, the hotel's morning rhythm swallowed her. Guests crossing marble floors, the soft roll of luggage, the murmur of greetings at the front desk. Everything polished, Everything normal. Selena moved through it like a ghost. In the staff locker room, she stood at her locker and stared at her uniform as if she'd never seen it before. The fabric was ordinary. Cheap compared to the suite upstairs. It smelled faintly of detergent and the back-of-house air, steam, food, bleach. It smelled like work. Like reality. She changed slowly, motions deliberate. Shirt on, buttons done carefully. Name tag pinned. She smoothed the collar twice, that familiar small action, aligning, correcting, making neat what felt torn. Her hands kept wanting to shake. She forced them steady. In her mind, Brianna's words repeated, shifting each time like light through a prism. I own this hotel. I didn't plan to feel anything. I'm going to fix this. Selena leaned her forehead against the locker door for a moment, eyes closed. Cool metal. Grounding. She tried to think like a professional. Like the ambitious hotel management graduate who had survived Sarah Chen's endless rotations. She tried to place the situation into categories: conflict of interest, ethics, policy. But her body kept remembering other categories: warmth, breath, closeness. The way Brianna had held her in sleep without asking for anything. No. Not that. Not exactly. A co-worker entered, chatting on her phone. Someone laughed, pulled a hair tie from her wrist, cursed softly about a double shift. The world didn't stop because Selena's life had tilted. Selena inhaled, straightened, and walked back into the hotel. She avoided the top floor all morning. It wasn't difficult. Sarah had her scheduled everywhere else. The banquet room needed setup. The front desk needed overflow. Linen inventory needed double-checking. Sarah's voice cut through every space like a blade disguised as efficiency. Faster, Selena, she said, watching Selena lift a stack of folded napkins. You're not here to daydream. Selena kept her expression neutral. Yes, Sarah. Inside, everything churned. Sarah's eyes narrowed slightly. You look tired. Selena's mouth went dry. Long shift last night. Sarah's smile thinned. Be careful. Guests notice weakness. Selena almost laughed. Almost. Instead, she nodded and kept working, her movements precise. Folding. Aligning. Making order. The repeated gesture became a lifeline. Around noon, her phone buzzed with a message from dispatch. Not room service. Conference room C. Required attendance. Selena stared at the screen. Her pulse sharpened. She walked toward the administrative wing, passing staff she recognized, regional directors, department heads. People with lanyards and laptops and faces set into the polished neutrality of corporate meetings. Her mouth tasted metallic again. At the door to conference room C, she paused. The sign outside read, Regional Operations Review. Her hand hovered near the handle. Inside, she could hear voices, low, formal, familiar. She pushed the door open. Sarah Chen sat at the table near the front, posture stiff, expression composed. She looked up and her eyes narrowed when she saw Selena. What are you doing here? Sarah hissed under her breath, just loud enough to sting. Selena's throat tightened. I was requested. By who? Sarah snapped softly. Selena didn't answer. She moved to an empty chair near the end of the table, sitting with careful control. Her hands rested on her lap. She could feel her own heartbeat, loud and insistent, like it was trying to be heard over the room's air conditioning. The door opened again. Brianna entered. Not in a robe. Not barefoot. Not softened by mourning. She wore a tailored suit, dark and precise, hair pulled back cleanly. She looked like the woman Selena had been imagining the entire time without understanding what she was imagining. Someone who belonged to the top floor of every building. The room changed the moment she stepped in. People stood. Chairs scraped. Respect rose like a tide. Lawson, someone said, voice slightly too eager. Selena's stomach dropped again, even though she knew. Knowing didn't make it easier. Knowing only made it more real. Brianna's gaze moved across the room once, quick and assessing. When it reached Selena, it stopped for a beat longer than it should have. No smile. No softness. Just acknowledgement. Selena's chest tightened. She looked down, focusing on the wood grain of the table, on the neat stack of printed agendas, on the pen placed perfectly parallel to the edge. Objects. Order. Anything. Brianna took the seat at the head of the table. Thank you for coming on short notice, Brianna said, voice calm and authoritative. This is a surprise audit review. A murmur ran through the room. The people shifted uncomfortably. Sarah's face stayed composed, but her fingers tightened around her pen. Selena saw it. Of course she did. Brianna opened a folder. Papers inside. Real paper, like in the suite. Selena's stomach clenched at the familiarity. We're entering a merger, Brianna continued. And that means we have to address performance and culture immediately. Not later. Not in carefully worded memos. Now. The room went still. Brianna's eyes were sharp as she spoke numbers, policies, findings. Each sentence felt like a nail driven cleanly into wood. 47% of employees report abusive management practices, Brianna said evenly. Turnover is 3 times the network average. Multiple protocol and labor violations have been documented. A director cleared his throat. Lawson, we? Brianna held up a hand. Silence fell again. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. She turned her gaze toward Sarah Chen. Sarah's smile appeared, professional and brittle. I'm confident we can address any concerns internally. Brianna's tone remained calm. You will be transferred. The words dropped into the room like a stone. Sarah blinked once, too slow. Excuse me? You are being reassigned to our corporate training unit, Brianna said. Effective immediately, you will be retrained in leadership and compliance. Sarah's face drained slightly. With respect, that's not a discussion, Brianna said. Selena's chest tightened. Relief flared, hot, immediate. Then guilt followed, sharp and bitter. She didn't want Sarah to win. She didn't want Sarah to harm anyone else. But watching her fall felt like watching a wall collapse, satisfying and terrifying. Sarah's eyes snapped toward Selena, sudden suspicion sharpening into something uglier. Selena kept her gaze down. She felt exposed in a different way now, as if everyone could see the invisible line connecting her to Brianna. Brianna turned her attention back to the table. The hotel needs interim leadership while we restructure management. A director protested immediately. We have candidates who oversaw this environment, Brianna replied, voice flat. The director's mouth tightened. Then who? Brianna's gaze moved to Selena again, deliberate this time. Selena's breath stopped. Brianna spoke calmly, as if naming a fact. Selena. Selena looked up, throat tight. Brianna didn't soften. Didn't perform intimacy. She kept it professional, which somehow made it harder. She will serve as interim general manager, Brianna said. 90 days. The room erupted, not loudly, because these were executives trained in restraint. But faces shifted. Eyes widened. Quiet disbelief spread like heat. Sarah made a sound that was almost a laugh. She's 23. She has vision, Brianna said, voice calm. And she understands hospitality begins with how we treat our own people. A director leaned forward, incredulous. She has no management experience? Brianna's eyes didn't flinch. She has been managing outcomes without authority. That's the point? Selena's stomach flipped. Her hands went cold. The room felt too bright. Too silent. Someone said her name again softly, like a question. Selena couldn't tell who. Brianna turned slightly, addressing the board. You'll support her, you'll give her resources, and in 90 days we'll review results. Selena's pulse hammered. She felt as if she'd been lifted onto a stage without warning. Sarah's gaze burned into her from across the table. Accusation. Fury. Something like betrayal. Selena's mouth went dry. She wanted to speak. To refuse. To ask questions. To demand distance from Brianna's power. But the room was watching. And Brianna's face gave nothing away. The meeting continued. Logistics, timelines, compliance mandates. Selena heard the words as if through water. Her mind kept returning to one sentence, repeating with slight shifts each time. How can I know it's real? How can I know it's not leverage? How can I know I didn't just become a story someone powerful tells herself? When the meeting ended, chairs scraped back. People stood, gathered papers, murmured congratulations that didn't reach Selena's skin. Sarah swept past Selena with a cold smile. Enjoy your promotion, she hissed. Everyone will know why you got it. Selena's face flushed hot. She opened her mouth, then closed it. Words felt useless against poison. The room emptied. Selena remained seated, staring at the table's clean surface. Her reflection faint in the polished wood. Her hands lay still, palms up, as if waiting for instructions. The door clicked softly behind her. Brianna stood in the doorway. She didn't enter. She didn't cross the room. She stayed at the threshold, giving Selena space in the only way she could. Selena's throat tightened. She didn't look up at first. She couldn't. Brianna's voice was quiet, professional, but underneath it, something strained. You didn't have to accept. Selena let out a breath that shook. You already said it in front of everyone. Brianna's silence held for a beat, heavy. I know. Selena finally looked up. Brianna's face was composed, but her eyes were not. There was tension there. A restraint that looked like pain. This fixes Sarah, Selena said, voice flat. It fixes the hotel. It fixes everything. It fixes one part, Brianna replied quietly. Selena's hands curled slightly on her lap. And what about us? Brianna didn't move. She didn't reach for the easy answer. That's the part I can't fix with authority, she said. You have to decide what you believe. Selena swallowed. Her mouth tasted metallic again. She stared at Brianna's hand resting on the doorframe, fingers relaxed, not reaching. The choice sat between them like a held breath. Selena stood slowly. Her legs felt unsteady, but she stayed upright. She took one step toward the door, then stopped. Her hand hovered near her new badge, still clipped to her uniform, still the same name, but suddenly carrying different weight. She could walk past Brianna and leave. She could speak and risk everything. She could stay silent and let distance harden into something permanent. Selena's fingers lifted, almost touching the doorframe. Almost touching Brianna's hand. Almost. The first thing Selena did was change the schedule. Not dramatically. Not ceremonially. She stood alone in the new office, her office now, and stared at the whiteboard where shifts were mapped out in neat, color-coded lines. Morning light filtered through the window, catching dust in the air. The space smelled faintly of paper, coffee, and something older. Authority, maybe, worn thin by years of misuse. She erased one name from a double shift. Then another. Her hand posed, Maka hovering. She felt the weight of the decision not as excitement but as pressure. Quiet responsibility settling into her shoulders. This wasn't about proving Brianna right. It wasn't about silencing Sarah. It wasn't even about ambition, not really. It was about alignment. She wrote her own name into a slot she knew she could handle. She left space where space was needed. She rebalanced. When she stepped back, the board looked humane. That afternoon, she walked the hotel floor differently. Slower. More attentive. She stopped to ask a housekeeper how her day was going and waited for the answer. She learned 2 birthdays. She fixed a minor guest complaint herself instead of passing it upward. She noticed how people straightened when they realized she was listening, not evaluating, not hovering. The hotel didn't transform overnight. But it shifted. Subtly. Like a room after the windows have been opened. Brianna watched from a distance. She didn't come upstairs for 2 days. Didn't request room service. Didn't manufacture proximity. She kept to meetings, to glass-walled conference rooms, to the visible spine of her role. It was restraint with intent. On the 3rd evening, Selena found a note on her desk. Handwritten dot. Brief. Dinner. If you want. No expectations. Selena read it twice. Then once more, slower. She sat with it longer than necessary. Let the day settle into her body. Let the adrenaline ebb. Let the hotel's sounds, phones, footsteps, laughter, remind her that life didn't pause for uncertainty. When she finally left the office, she didn't rush. The restaurant wasn't extravagant. Quiet lighting. Wood tables. The kind of place where conversations could breathe. Brianna stood when Selena arrived, not out of formality, but something closer to respect. They didn't hug. Didn't touch. They sat across from each other with the table as a boundary neither tried to cross. How was your first day? Brianna asked. Selena considered the question carefully. Hard. Real. Mine. Brianna nodded. Good. They ordered. Spoke about neutral things at first. The merger timeline, staffing logistics, a supplier issue Selena had already flagged. The conversation found its rhythm again, familiar but altered. Less charged. More deliberate. Eventually, the silence arrived. This one didn't feel dangerous. I need to say something, Selena said. Brianna's posture shifted. Not defensive, not tense. Just attentive. Oh, okay. Selena rested her hands flat on the table. Steady. What you did in that room, it mattered. Professionally. Ethically. You didn't have to do it the way you did. I did, Brianna said quietly. Because anything else would have been suspect. Selena nodded. I know. But knowing doesn't erase the question. Brianna didn't interrupt. Selena met her gaze. I needed to know that if this use exists at all, it's not built on power. Or rescue. Or you deciding my worth. Brianna inhaled slowly. And do you? Selena's voice was calm now. I think you're learning to step back, and I'm learning to step forward. Brianna's mouth curved, almost a smile. That sounds right. Another pause. Selena continued quieter. I didn't want to be hidden, or hurried, or confused. Brianna leaned back slightly, giving space even in her body language. Then don't be. The simplicity of it landed hard. Selena felt something loosen in her chest. Not fear. Not desire. Something steadier. I want to choose this, Selena said. Not fall into it. Brianna's eyes softened. Then choose. They didn't kiss. They finished dinner. Walked outside together into the evening air. The city moved around them, cars passing, people laughing somewhere nearby, a busker tuning a guitar. Ordinary life continuing. At the corner, they stopped. Brianna didn't reach out. She waited. Selena stepped closer instead. This time the kiss wasn't desperate. It wasn't urgent. It was slow, deliberate, a shared decision unfolding in real time. When they parted, their foreheads rested together briefly, breath mingling. Slow, Selena murmured. Brianna smiled, real and unguarded. I'm learning. 6 months later, the hotel's reviews spoke for themselves. But Selena didn't read them obsessively. She trusted the quiet signs more, the reduced turnover, the laughter in the staff corridors, the way people knocked on her door without fear. Her office felt lived in now. A plant by the window. A framed photograph of the city at dawn. Her photograph. A gift. Brianna visited officially, announced, professional. They greeted each other with measured warmth in public. With something deeper in private. That evening, they stood on the balcony together, the city glowing beneath them. Selena lifted her camera and framed the skyline, adjusting the focus with practiced ease. What are you photographing? Brianna asked from behind her. Selena smiled, steady and certain. Possibilities. Brianna slipped her arms around Selena's waist, not claiming, not leading. Just there. And for the first time, the future didn't feel like a negotiation. It felt like space. Like breath. Like something chosen and still choosing. Some connections don't arrive loudly, they settle, quietly reshaping the way we stand in the world. When desire asks us to choose between safety and truth, which part of ourselves do we trust to answer? Some stories don't end when the moment fades, they stay with us, asking to be felt. If this story awakened something you recognize, you're welcome to share your truth in the comments. And if this journey stayed with you, consider subscribing to Secret Garden Stories and sharing it with someone who might feel seen. Your support helps this space grow, a world with more love, more honesty, and less silence. Thank you for being here.